Welcome to Into the Words, a podcast from the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center. Today in the cabin are our dear friends, Harold Underdown and Eileen Robinson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Harold and Eileen, let's start with a little background. Let's start with the revision retreat. That's what you're here for. You're teaching that. How long have you done the revision retreat? Do you know?
Well, we first did what was actually a workshop in 2012, back before the barn was even built.
Oh, wow.
And we did that down in the farmhouse with a small group. And the following year, we figured we need to make this a little longer, give people some time to work with what we're teaching them. So we expanded it out to a retreat.
Okay.
And we've been giving it that way ever since.
And Eileen, will you talk a little bit about the format of the revision retreat?
Well, we work with them first discovering the big picture, and then we go to the smaller picture where that's more cleaning up and polishing your manuscript. And then we move on to creating and generating new material. Actually, we do that in between. So they're always doing some form of exercise in what we're teaching, and then they take their manuscripts back and work on bits and pieces where they feel that they have problems.
And that's our material side. We've actually got a kind of split in the way the retreat is set up. We present that material and try it out in the mornings, and then we have afternoons free for people to write and revise and also have one-on-one meetings with us. So it's an unusual format. We think it works pretty well. Our goal is to get people thinking about what they need to do next. Mm-hmm. And so take those plans away with them and take our tools away with them so that maybe 5 years from now even, they're still using them.
So what do you mean by tools? You're giving revision techniques?
That's right. We're giving them techniques and also ways of thinking about revision, how to understand where they are in the process and what tool they might want to use at a particular point. And for example, with the big picture techniques, there's one that we use that we call the revision grid, and it's just a way of formatting what's in your manuscript in a different way so that you see it differently. Or if you want to look at a simpler example of a revision technique, there's one that we use in the final stage, which is we suggest to people that they have someone read their manuscript to them while they're sitting taking notes on their own copy. And what we find is that just the process of hearing someone reading it and also listening and looking at your paper, not reading it yourself fast, helps things emerge that you might not have noticed on your own. So those are the kinds of things we do.
Okay. And so Eileen, tell me, what was one of the talks that you gave or that you'll be giving while you're here?
Well, I focused mostly on generating new material.
Okay.
Whether it's with an existing manuscript or the writer wants to create something new. And one of the techniques we use is, make your character the opposite of what they are and see where that takes you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And a lot of writers discover things that they didn't know. And it helps them to create a more well-rounded character because in real life, none of us are perfect. We all have different sides. No one is all good. No one is all bad. And so how do you develop a character so that the character feels real? And so we give several different kinds of ways of thinking about that within your manuscript as well as outside of your manuscript.
Oh, that sounds great. All right. Now, switch gears a little bit. The two of you, Eileen and Harold, you also do your own online classes? You teach a class?
That's right. We run a partnership that we call Kids Book Revisions. Okay. And the revision and reimagining curriculum that we've developed together and that we present at the revision retreat, we also do present in the form of webinars that we give periodically, usually over a it's usually over a couple of months period, once a week with maybe a few weeks being skipped. We'll have about an hour-long session. We'll focus in on one part of the process and just have an online version of the revision retreat material, or also material that we give in workshops at conferences.
Sure. So it gives authors an opportunity to take an online class if they're revising and aren't able to come to the Highlights Foundation in August.
Right. Although I have to say, coming to the Highlights Foundation in August is my favorite way of teaching these materials, because we have the space and the time to really get to know our students and to help them find what they need to work with and take their next steps.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of a retreat center, where you have time to
That's right.
learn, work, learn, and kind of process. And you don't have to do the cooking and the cleaning.
That's true too.
Chores from home are set aside for a little while.
And I think the beauty of it is to the grounds and being able to walk the grounds. And I think that can help the creative process as well. The cabins, the whole atmosphere.
The natural environment helps, sure. Okay, so switch gears. Tell me a little bit, Eileen, about your life outside of the Revision Retreat Week at the Highlights Foundation.
Well, besides working with Harold at Kids Book Revisions, I also have a publishing company called Move Books, dedicated to getting more boys to read, middle grade between the ages of 8 and 12. And I also am helping another company, Benchmark Education, build its first trade imprint. And we'll be launching in the fall with those books. And what else? I also.
What else? Sounds like that's a lot.
And I guess I mentor from time to time writers independently as well.
And I know you'll be back in October for a short visit, and you'll be doing an interview Q&A process with Adriana Dominguez.
I think so, yes.
Great. Looking forward to that. And Harold, how about you? You have a website, you do online classes.
That's right. Well, yes. In addition to Kids Book Revisions, I run a website that I started more than 20 years ago, The Purple Crayon, which has information about the basics of children's publishing, submissions, that kind of thing, and also information about editors moving and where they're going, and all that kind of information that writers are often looking for, and I try to have that available on that website. In addition to that, I do work independently with authors on manuscript consultations or critiques.
And you also wrote a book that we use in the crash course, which is the kind of everything you need to know about children's books.
Right.
And that's
the Complete Idiot's Guide to Publishing Children's Books.
Okay. And how long ago did you write that?
Well, the original edition was published in 2001.
Okay.
And I actually have these very distinct memories of being at Chautauqua for the Chautauqua Week that Highlights ran in those days. And I was giving presentations and meeting with students, and then I would run back to my room and I would work on another chapter for the book. So it's been out since back then.
I wonder if interacting with all the writers at Chautauqua was providing you fodder for your manuscript.
It was certainly better than just being in a room somewhere else. It was a kind of inspiring place to be.
Well, that's neat. And I know I saw it's on the shelf of our bookstore here at the Highlights Foundation, and I know that's kind of the book that we give for the crash course as kind of getting started and learning about children's publishing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for joining us on Into the Words here at the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center. We are dedicated to continuing our 35-year history of providing the space, the conversations, and the nurturing that goes into making great stories for children. So thank you for being a part of that and supporting the Highlights Foundation, but also thank you for what you do in your daily lives to support that belief that children are the world's most important people.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.